half-year-old, a 1.5-month-old child named Peter.
Wow. Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you, Senator Sorokin.
Okay, so we have about 15 minutes, as I suggested, and I know you had been anxious to share with us your work and how it fits into some of the things we're doing. So I welcome you, and why don't you let us know what Habitat for Humanity is up to?
Great. Thank you, Senator Sorokin, for having me on such short notice. Really appreciate it, and the other senators for allowing me this time. Really special thanks to Senator Clarkson. Known her for a while, and also I wanted to know I've been following the work of Woodstock in their homeownership programs, and I know you've been a big supporter of that, and I think it's a fantastic program.
Now they have Michael will be interested in this. They have a seminar, a meeting tonight about ADUs.
Ooh.
Oh,
Yeah.
So I did this with short notice, so I kind of just threw this together this morning, and I apologize. I'll try to go as quickly as possible. I know that many of you are probably already familiar with the housing needs and Habitat's work, so I will try to get to the crust as quickly as possible. So just my name is Zachariah Watson. I'm the Executive Director for Central Vermont Habitat for Humanity. I'm also a member of the Vermont Statewide Steering Committee for the Habitat affiliates. So first of all, there are 7 affiliates in Vermont. Here are the 7 listed here. You can kind of see the service areas. Upper Valley goes across multiple states. But there are, each one of us is a little bit different in our structure and how we do things. We are all 501c3 affordable housing nonprofits. We are part of, but operate separately from Habitat for Humanity International and receive no financial support. They provide guidance and standards that we all must follow to maintain our good standing. The earliest affiliate, Green Mountain Habitat, which is in Chittenden County, has been active since 1987. So we have been building and rehabilitating housing in Vermont for over 30 years. Basically, we have additionally, we have a 3-member rotating statewide steering committee. As I said, I'm a part of that. It manages statewide communications, organizes 2 conferences a year, fosters collaboration and sharing of ideas. And for the last couple of years, we've organized a legislative day at the State House. And I'm sure some of you have stopped by, grabbed some coffee and donuts and everything like that in the, not recently, of course. And yeah, so we keep the cost of our building our houses affordable by working with volunteers and requiring something that's called sweat equity of our homeowners. So we are basically a nonprofit housing developers. We are also non-traditional mortgage loan originators. So this means we create and service and mortgage our own mortgages for our homeowners. This allows for us to actually be a little bit more flexible in our qualifications for who we partner with and how we do it. So that's those are just generally what we do. You know, and the vision of Jimmy Carter is a big supporter of Habitat for Humanity, so we love to throw that up there. We have several programs. I'm going to focus on homeownership today, but folks have probably stopped in at our restores. Basically, when Millard Fuller and Linda Fuller started Habitat for Humanity in 1979, they had the idea of keeping the cost of housing low by working with volunteers, requiring that each homeowner complete sweat equity, and then offering a 0% interest affordable mortgage with payments going into a sort of revolving fund, which is then used to fund and build more houses. The principles and practices have made it possible for Habitat for Humanity to become the largest and most recognizable affordable housing nonprofit in the world. As I said, we're essentially nonprofit housing developers and mortgage loan originators. These 2 roles have essentially helped us streamline our process into a very successful business model. So part of the reason I joined you here today was because I know that people are aware of the need of homeownership and the importance of homeownership, but I think the narrative has really shifted to it's too expensive to build single family houses for homeownership. And so it's not a good business model, especially for low income homeowners. And as a result, I don't know how much funds, especially with ARPA and in housing are actually going to specifically home ownership opportunities. I know that it's generally going to to housing, but how much of it is explicitly going into home ownership, I'm not sure about, which is why I really want to make a plug for home ownership and show that we have a successful business model, which with your support, we can actually do more. And like I said, we've been doing it successfully for 30 years now. So homeownership is a very powerful tool for bringing folks out of poverty and helping low-income families and individuals become financially successful, in addition to the non-financial reasons that homeownership is valuable. Homeownership is an investment. As opposed to rent, mortgage payments are going towards an asset. Their home, which they can leverage with home equity loans, can help build additional financial capacity or send themselves or their kids to college. And then you get to sell the house at the end of living there and benefit from the appreciated value and the value of the growth of our US market, in addition to the money that you've already invested through mortgage payments. Homeownership is also, it's more permanent than renting. Renting is by its very nature transient unless you're looking for what you're renting to find homeownership. People who own homes in communities are invested in their local government, in their taxes, they send their kids to school, they volunteer. Homeowners, because they are connected to the community through their home, are much more likely to be engaged in a community. In my family, we owned our home, even though my mom was a single mom and had no higher education. Because she owned her home, she could send us to including myself, to college. But more importantly, it meant that she could work at a local nonprofit arts council, Pentangle Counseling Art, which I have to say, Allison Clarkson played a very big role in supporting my mom in that. And she did this instead of working nights as a waitress. It also enabled her to bring us to live performance and expose us to the arts. These are the intangibles of homeownership. Additionally, we did a poster design contest this last year where we had students in elementary school send us their designs. That's what these pictures of what homeownership means to them. These are the intangibles. So homeownership to them was family, it's memories, Christmas and holidays. And one of them said is the best thing ever. So look at the smile on their face. It's valuable to see what homeownership means from the perspective of a child and not just that financial piece. But again, I don't want to get too much into this, but I can tell you that from the Washington County Housing Needs Assessment, their ultimate determination about the need of housing was middle income housing. But in the report, they actually talk about how they didn't factor in the cost of renovating the low income homes to make them livable. This is lead abatement, it's foundation work, it's roofs, it's asbestos. These things can cost $20,000 to $40,000 or hundreds of thousands of dollars in some cases. And then I'm sure many of you saw the article from BT Digger about that there are 7,000 households in Vermont that lack basic amenities. These are the affordable houses for low-income homeowners. So while they may be affordable at base price, they are not, because it costs a significant amount of money to actually make them livable. Furthermore, a lot of these are actually mobile homes, and mobile homes depreciate in value over time. We all know this. And so VHCB will actually not provide a housing mortgage subsidy to a mobile home because they want their homeowners to be financially successful by getting the value of the appreciated value of the home when it resells. So all this to say is, while there definitely is a need for middle income housing, I don't want to say that, I am willing to bet that if you actually factored in the cost of renovations on these affordable houses for low-income families, that the biggest need would actually be for low-income housing. Just wanted to make a quick plug there. I know you all know this.
Mariah, can I stop you there? Because I think it's a really good point. This is Senator Rom Hinsdale. Is that okay, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
It just kind of gave me, I don't know, like an aha moment that, you know, we don't just create middle income housing. Housing creates middle income families. Yes. And I think you're really underscoring that. I just wanted to sort of say that out loud. So really, really appreciating your point.
Thank you, Senator Rom Hinsdale. Absolutely. Our programs are designed to make our homeowners successful. we want to take them out of poverty into middle income. Renting doesn't do that because there's no equity. And not to say that renting isn't something that is really valuable. Not everybody's meant to be a homeowner, but homeownership is a tool, a powerful tool to bring people from low to middle income and even higher. And we have plenty of examples in our own homeowners. So I know folks oftentimes when we talk about Habitat, we say, oh, Habitat takes it's a long time. It does. It takes about 2 years for us to build a house. And that's because we have to find a parcel of land. It takes about 6 months for us to find our partner homeowner because we have to find the right partner homeowner. And then we actually build the home based on the needs of the partner homeowner we selected. So that means we design the house, whether it needs to be universally accessible, have a certain number of bedrooms. We then ourselves provide an affordable 0%, or in some cases, some of the affiliates provide a very low interest mortgage through a third-party mortgage service originator. And then they get to move in their house. And then we reinvest those mortgage payments into our future builds. So our process from the beginning of advertising our homeownership opportunity to that homeowner moving into their house can take somewhere between 1.5 and 2 years. So I don't know actually how that compares to normal construction of homes, but that's our timeline.
What, Zach, when you say you provide a zero or very low interest mortgage, is that for what percentage of the value of the home? Are the folks buying the home at market rate?
So the sales price is the full fair market value of the home. And I'll get into this as well, Senator Sirotkin, but that's the sales.
We only have 4 minutes.
Okay. All right. Well, let me okay. So basically, these are. I'm going to send this information to Scott so he can send it to you as well.
Right.
So it costs us.
Yeah.
It costs us about $165,000 to build our homes.
Okay.
So
Wow.
this house here, this is 11 Highland Avenue in Barrie. It's a 100-year-old Victorian forest square. It was a complete gut rehab, lead, asbestos, you name it, foundation work, roof work. We had a section in the back we had to tear down. Still, and we brought it to high performance Energy Star standards. Still only cost us $165,000 to build because of our process. The house itself is valued at $215,000. So that will be the fair market sales price for the house. I'm trying to remember which slide I actually broke down how we do our mortgages. But essentially, we never provide a mortgage that's more than the cost of the construction and development of the house, right? So we will never, even though the fair market value is $215,000, our mortgage is $165,000. We also receive a $40,000 VHCB subsidy on that. So that reduces that 165 down to 125. And that's our mortgage, is $125,000. So that's the promissory note that the homeowner is paying on. And then the VHCB subsidy creates resale restrictions on the house. So, but ultimately, we look at our homeowners, we design the mortgage based on what they can afford to pay. So they never will pay more than 30% of their income. And we have a very robust process for determining whether they can afford to pay a mortgage. So even if, for example, that 125 with the VHCB subsidy, that's ultimately what we could charge to cover all of our construction costs. If the homeowner couldn't afford that 125, we would reduce the mortgage amount to accommodate their needs or extend the terms, something like that. And whatever that difference is, we subsidize. So there's a third mortgage on all of our homes, which is a Habitat for Humanity subsidy. And it's a deferred loan essentially, so they'll never pay on it. That's essentially how, as a mortgage loan originator, we can build houses really cheap and then offer really affordable low mortgages for low income families.
Well, Zach,
We're gonna have to move along, but
can I give you just real quick? I just wanted to tell you about why I wanted to join you today. So Habitat, like I said, it's a very successful business model, but its success depends on a sound financial practice, which is very slow and incremental. which means we grow very slowly. We essentially fundraise for each of our builds, and mortgage payments cover the cost of hiring paid employees to complete the builds. Most affiliates only have 1 to 2 employees, and we're still building 10 to 15 houses a year. With an influx in cash and funds, we can help increase our capacity to hire more builders, or to double or triple the number of houses that we're building for a homeownership program annually. With $1 million, we could hire builders, that's 7 new builders, to double our capacity, so 30 new homeownership opportunities. With $2 million, we could triple our statewide capacity and build up to 45 houses annually for our homeownership program. Currently, VHCB has a Habitat fund. They set the amount of subsidy each year. If the legislature sent funds towards VHCB designated specifically for the Habitat fund, then that would allow for them to increase the amount that they provide to Habitat. That would help increase our capacity. It would also decrease the mortgage amount for our homeowners so that they're even more affordable. 2 other small policy pieces, because I know you guys get a lot of asks for money, but Vermont is also maybe one of the only states that requires affordable housing nonprofits to pay property taxes on the properties they're working on. Despite the building affordable housing is well within our mission, property taxes are considered soft costs, which we then incorporate in the construction and development costs and then pass on to our homeowner. It would make a lot of sense if nonprofit housing, affordable housing organizations were tax exempt on the properties they own that they were building housing on. The second policy piece is that VHCB is funded through the property transfer tax, yet our homeowners still have to pay property transfer taxes at closing, which can be quite a bit. And closing costs can be $3,000 to $5,000, which is a big amount for people we work with. In fact, we only require a $500 down payment. We actually end up having to offer closing notes that they pay back in the first year to make up for these closing costs. So it actually makes a lot of sense to exempt houses with VHCB subsidies on them from paying property transfer tax. It's small change, you know, in the grand scheme of things, $1,000 or actually $1,200 in a lot of cases, but all those add up and make it our work more possible. All right. Sorry, Senator Sorokin, if I went over a little bit.
No, you actually touched upon the questions I was going to ask. How many houses do you foresee building in 2022?
We'll be building 2 houses ourselves. We could build 4 if we had more capacity. There's a house in Barrie that we could be working on, and there's another house in Montpelier that we could be building on. I can't speak for the other affiliates because I didn't have time to ask them what they have in the pipeline.
But you on average build 10 to 15 homes a year, Habitat, for the whole state.
For the whole state, correct.
Okay. Thank
Well,
you. It's real.
Thank you, Zach.
Your work is impressive. Thank you.
Yeah, as a former legislator, you also know how to speed up for a committee that has a time challenge.
Oh my gosh, I think I haven't worn this jacket since I was in the House committee. It got a little bit tight. I don't know. Since then, I forgot how to.
It's interesting because it's just one comment. We had a builder in just earlier this morning, and I think Senator Brock asked the question, or somebody asked the question of whether there's any discount in terms of.
I did.
Are you okay? And there is none. I mean, the subsidies we give, which helps sustain their business, it's like 20% of their business. They're not giving any reduction in costs, where you, through your philanthropy and your other choices, are able to bring the costs down when you get some subsidies. So, I mean, it's all about scaling in your case, because we're only talking about 10 houses a year, but
Right.
every house helps. So
Randy
thank you for your work.
Randy had a question, I think.
Yes.
Just the only comment is I'm very impressed with what Habitat for Humanity does, and I wonder if Habitat would be willing to take over our entire affordable housing program, because you do seem to do the best job of any that I've heard.
VHCB does an incredible job. We would not be anywhere where, I mean, we depend on VHCB for the work that they do. And, you know, they provide a lot of things. You know, we can build houses really well. I will say that we build houses really well. we don't want to be in the mortgage service and origination business. It's counterintuitive, it's counterproductive in some cases. We want to focus on building,
Right.
so we can build more and use our model successfully.
A great
VHCD does
job.
the rest really well.
In your
Yeah.
work around the state, and I continue to be impressed.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I'd build on Randy's because you're not just building houses, you're building communities with those volunteers who are building those houses, which is a very important additional piece to this. Because you totally depend on volunteers to build these houses and sweat equity. And you're building communities, as you and I both know, Zach, people who've worked on the house in Bridgewater have gone on to do other houses. They become like a little team. And that's a very special thing to watch.
Well, and it's that network of support too. We find that low-income families are much more successful if they have a network of people underneath. My mom, Allison, you, and Wendy Wanup, and these folks that like help my mom be successful. Where my mom could throw us to her friends for the day, and she could go and work. Networks of support are super important, and we do build community. You're absolutely right.
That's an
Anyway, so
important.
there are, yeah.
Can I ask a question, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Um,
Senator Blunt.
sort of building on what Senator Clarkson said, it's not just volunteers that make this affordable, it's also donating the land. Often my husband was on the Green Mountain Habitat for Humanity board for a long time, and they're often looking for people to donate the land, which saves a lot of cost. And it's something that we've talked about in the abstract in terms of communities and the state making land available for this kind of housing development. I wonder if you've seen any of that where you said, man, if that town could just give us this land. And part of the housing bill that Allison and I have introduced is municipal land banks, which there are some towns looking at it and saying this might be able to help us with blighted, abandoned properties.
100%. There's a Better Places webinar going on right now, which I want to tune into once we get off. But you're right. No, land banks. I mean, we are all about land banks. Habitats have been advocating at the federal level and also local levels that if we have a pool of funds that we can use to get land, even though we can't use it right away, but we know is ideal for housing, that certainly will create opportunities for us. And just an example is right now, Montpelier has a bond on its March meeting day for $2 million to purchase a piece of land. It's called the Outs Club, and they want to use that for affordable housing. If the in a recreation area, if the voters come out and say no to that, then that's going to pass on to become something else, probably a golf course or something like that. But if we had a land bank and we could tap into that land bank and use those funds to purchase this property, and then make it available for affordable housing, it will create a ton more opportunities. So I think that's a really great idea, and we really support that, Senator Romney.
Well, we may have you back because we will be talking about land banks. We do have to run, and I'm interested perhaps talking more with you about the exemption from the transfer tax as our little bit to help here. Okay, thank you.
Now that's a great idea.
Thank you all very much for your work, and I appreciate you, especially
Thank you,
Zoom and
Zach.
COVID. Yeah, thank you.
See you all.
Take care. Bye, Elsa.
Good luck with Peter.
I will. I'll show if you guys bring me back. I promise I'll show you the baby.
Okay.
Great. We look forward.
Okay.
All right. Thank you
Bye.
very much. Take care.